The call shattered Jared Goldberg's sleep at 3:14 a.m. A woman's voice, clinical but urgent, cut through the darkness. "Mr. Goldberg, this is Memorial Hospital. Naomi Tipton collapsed during her shift. Her heart stopped twice in the ambulance." His mind went blank. He didn't know anyone named Naomi Tipton. "I'm sorry," he managed. "There must be some mistake." The doctor's response froze his blood. "You're listed as her emergency contact. She wrote your name 3 months ago." Jared sat up in his king-sized bed, the Manhattan skyline glittering through floor-to-ceiling windows. Naomi Tipton. The name meant nothing. He cycled through business contacts, charity galas, the endless rotation of faces. Nothing. "Mr. Goldberg, are you still there?" "Yes, I'm here." He swung his legs over the side of the bed. "What's her condition?" "Critical. She's stable now, but we need family here. Since you're her only emergency contact, I'll be there in 20 minutes. He should have said no. Should have explained this was obviously an error, but something in the doctor's voice, urgency mixed with desperation, made refusal impossible. Jared dressed quickly. Jeans, black sweater, the casual uniform of wealth. His reflection showed a man who looked every one of his 42 years at 3 in the morning. Dark hair silvering at the temples, sharp blue eyes tired from reviewing acquisition proposals, a face that had learned to reveal nothing. The drive through Manhattan's empty streets gave him too much time to think. Richard's words from last week echoed, "You're going to die alone in that penthouse, Jared. All that money, all that success, and not a single person who'd cross the street to save you." His business partner had been drunk, bitter after his divorce, but the accusation landed because it was true. At 42, Jared owned commercial properties in 12 cities, had a net worth that made financial magazines write profiles, and maintained an immaculate reputation for turning struggling developments into gold mines. He had everything money could buy, and nothing that mattered. Memorial Hospital's emergency entrance blazed with fluorescent light. Jared parked in a loading zone and strode through automatic doors into antiseptic smells and barely masked suffering. "I'm here for Naomi Tipton," he told the intake nurse. "I'm her emergency contact." The nurse's expression shifted. Surprise, maybe relief. "Third floor, room 312. Dr. Tanner's waiting." The elevator ride felt eternal. The third floor was quieter, the lighting softer. Room 312 sat at the end of a corridor painted in calming shades that only emphasized the institutional nature of the place. A woman's voice spoke behind him. "Mr. Goldberg." He turned to find a doctor in her 50s, African-American with silver threading her short natural hair. Her ID badge read, "Dr. Helena Tanner, head of nephrology." "I'm Jared Goldberg. I got a call about Naomi Tipton." "Thank you for coming. I know this must be confusing." Dr. Tanner's expression softened slightly. "She doesn't have family. Foster care background. You're the only name in her file." "I don't know her," Jared admitted. "I don't know why I'm listed." "She collapsed during her shift around midnight. Works as a hospital social worker. Cardiac arrest while counseling a family." Dr. Tanner pulled out a tablet. "Mr. Goldberg, her condition is critical. End-stage kidney failure. She's been working 70-hour weeks despite being critically ill." 70 hours? Jared's mind reeled. "She's our most dedicated social worker, also our most stubborn, has 37 active families depending on her." The frustration in Dr. Tanner's voice sharpened. "She needs a kidney transplant within months, possibly weeks. Her heart is showing strain. Tonight wasn't her first cardiac event, just the first one we witnessed." Jared felt something cold settle in his chest. "Can I see her?" Dr. Tanner opened the door to 312. Medical equipment surrounded the bed, monitors beeping. An IV pole stood sentinel beside the woman lying beneath crisp white sheets. And Jared's world tilted. She was beautiful. Even unconscious, even with grayish pallor, Naomi Tipton was stunning. Rich brown skin, natural locks framing a face with high cheekbones, full lips slightly parted, long lashes resting against her cheeks. Late 30s, but carrying authority that transcended age. Her hands rested on the blanket, elegant fingers with short practical nails, healing cuts on her knuckles, hands that worked hard. An ID badge showed Naomi Tipton, MSW, Hospital Social Services. He moved closer, drawn by something unnamed. This stranger felt dangerously familiar, as if his subconscious knew something his mind had forgotten. Without meaning to, Jared took her hand. Her skin was cool, fingers delicate. Holding her hand felt inexplicably right, as if his body remembered something his mind couldn't access. "Who are you, Naomi Tipton?" he whispered. "And why do you feel so familiar?" Time lost meaning in the steady rhythm of monitors. Outside, Manhattan began its slow transformation from night to dawn. Jared studied her face, memorizing details: the small scar above her eyebrow, the beauty mark near her ear, the way her locks fell across the pillow. Her hand twitched. Jared straightened. Her eyelids fluttered, then slowly opened. Extraordinary eyes, deep brown, almost black, intelligent and expressive despite medication fog. They focused on his face, and Jared watched recognition flicker, not of him, but awareness of a stranger holding her hand. "What?" Her voice came out rough, damaged from intubation. She tried to sit up. Jared released her hand to support her back. The physical contact sent unexpected awareness through him. "Easy, you're in the hospital. You collapsed." "What day is it?" "Saturday, early morning." "The Foster family, their appointment is Monday. I have to—" She tried to swing her legs. "Out of bed." Jared kept his hand on her back, light pressure that stopped her movement. "You're not going anywhere." "Who are you?" She turned to look at him fully. Those dark eyes saw too much, read too deeply. "Jared Goldberg. You listed me as your emergency contact." Naomi's face went through rapid emotions: confusion, shock, horror, recognition. "I did?" "According to Dr. Tanner." She closed her eyes. When she opened them, they glistened with tears. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have bothered you." "Why would you list me if you don't know me?" "I do know you. You just don't remember me." Her hands twisted the blanket. 3 months ago, in a supply closet, you were having a panic attack." The memory hit like a physical blow. 3 months ago, Richard's hostile takeover attempt, the brutal board meeting, Jared maintaining composure through 4 hours of corporate warfare, then finding himself in a supply closet, hyperventilating, chest tight, vision tunneling, heart racing, rational thought replaced by pure panic, the successful real estate developer reduced to gasping for air, terrified and alone, and then a voice, soft but steady. "Sir, are you all right?" A woman had appeared, African-American, professional clothes, an ID badge. She'd knelt beside him without hesitation. "My name is Naomi. I'm a social worker here. Let me help you." She'd taken his wrist, checking his pulse with gentle fingers. "Breathe with me, in through your nose, hold for 4 counts, out through your mouth." Her touch had been gentle, grounding. For the first time in years, Jared felt truly seen rather than managed. She hadn't recognized his name, hadn't commented on his expensive suit. She'd simply seen a human in distress and offered help without judgment. "You're safe," she'd whispered as his breathing steadied. "Whatever brought you here tonight, you're going to be okay." When the panic subsided, Jared had wanted to thank her. But embarrassment kept him silent, embarrassment at being found weak, at losing control. He'd muttered about being fine and left, too proud to acknowledge how much her kindness mattered. He'd never asked her name. Now, sitting beside her hospital bed, Jared realized he'd never said thank you. This woman had saved him from one of his darkest moments, and he'd repaid her by disappearing. "The supply closet," he said, voice rough with guilt. "You talked me through a panic attack." Naomi nodded. "You left before I could make sure you were okay." "Why did you list me as your emergency contact?" She was quiet, gaze dropping to where his hand still rested on her back. "Because in that supply closet for 10 minutes, you were the most real person I'd ever met, terrified and human and needing help. I wanted someone like that in my life." "Someone broken?" Jared asked, unable to keep bitterness from his voice. "Someone honest." Naomi looked up, intensity in her eyes stealing his breath. "Everyone I meet is either falling apart and needs me to fix them, or so together they don't need anyone. You were neither. You were just real, vulnerable, and you trusted me to help you." Jared felt something shift in his chest, some wall cracking. "I should have thanked you." "It's okay. It was my job." "No." The word came out harder than intended. It wasn't just your job. You saw someone in pain and helped. You didn't have to, and I was too much of a coward to acknowledge it." The honesty in his voice surprised him. He never revealed genuine emotion or admitted vulnerability. Yet something about this woman made defenses feel pointless. "And now here we are," Naomi said softly. "Me at my lowest, you seeing me fall apart. Life is circular sometimes. You're not falling apart. You're fighting. Fighting and losing." She gestured at the equipment. "This is what losing looks like." "What happened?" Urgency colored his voice. "Dr. Tanner said end-stage kidney failure. How long have you known?" Naomi's expression closed. "About 18 months. The symptoms started slowly." 18 months? Shock rang through his words. "You've been working 70-hour weeks while dying?" "I had patients who needed me. Families in crisis." 37 families, Jared interrupted. "You've been working yourself to death." "I'm not dying." "Your heart stopped twice tonight." The words hung like accusation. Naomi's face went blank. "I'm fine." "You're clearly not fine." Frustration and fear mixed in his voice, not at her, at the cruel unfairness of a woman spending her life saving others while slowly dying because she couldn't stop. "I don't need you to lecture me." Naomi's voice went cold. "You can go." "I'm not going anywhere." "You don't owe me anything." "I owe you everything." The words burst out. "You saved my life that night. Maybe not literally, but you saved me from drowning in panic. You saw me at my worst and didn't judge. You just helped." Naomi stared, something unreadable flickering. "That's not—" "I never said thank you." Jared leaned closer. "For 3 months I've thought about you, wondered who you were, and I told myself I'd forgotten because admitting I remembered meant admitting I'd been weak. Jared, so let me say it now. Thank you. Thank you for seeing me that night. Thank you for helping me breathe. Thank you for not treating my panic like a business problem." His voice roughened with buried emotion. "And thank you for giving me a second chance to not be a complete coward." Silence filled the room. Naomi's eyes glistened. A tear escaped, tracking down her cheek. Without thinking, Jared reached up and brushed it away with his thumb. Their faces were inches apart. Jared could see gold flecks in her dark eyes, feel her breath. Something passed between them, recognition, awareness, the dangerous pull of two people who'd seen each other's vulnerabilities and felt safer rather than more exposed. "You don't know me," Naomi whispered, but didn't pull away. "Maybe not, but I'd like to." "Why?" "Because you matter," Jared said simply. "Because someone who saves strangers in supply closets deserves to have someone fight for her. Because for the first time in years, I care about something that can't be measured in quarterly reports." A knock interrupted. Dr. Tanner entered, expression shifting to surprise at how close they sat, at his hand still cupping her face, at the charged atmosphere. "I need to discuss Miss Tipton's treatment options." Jared dropped his hand but didn't leave the bedside. "The cardiac arrest complicated things," Dr. Tanner said, pulling up a chair. "Your kidney function dropped to 15%. We need to start dialysis immediately and get you on the transplant list." "How long is the wait?" Naomi asked, voice steady despite devastating news. 3 to 5 years for a deceased donor. Unless you have a living donor, that could happen within months." "I don't have family," Naomi said flatly. "No siblings, no relatives. It's just me." "Friends? Close connections?" Naomi's laugh was bitter. "I help people for a living. I don't have time to build relationships where you ask someone to give you a kidney." Jared felt something settle in his chest, a decision forming before conscious thought caught up. "Test me." Both women stared. Dr. Tanner's eyes widened. Naomi's face went carefully blank. "You can't be serious," Naomi said. "Test me," Jared repeated. "What do I need to do to be evaluated as a donor?" "Mr. Goldberg, kidney donation is major surgery. I understand. Test me anyway." "You barely know her." "I know enough." His voice came out harder than intended, driven by inexplicable certainty. "She saved my life. Now I want to save hers. What do I need to do?" Dr. Tanner exchanged a long look with Naomi. Then she turned back to Jared, expression mixing skepticism with cautious hope. "Basic blood work, tissue typing, cross-matching, then comprehensive health screening, psychological evaluation, imaging studies. 6 to 8 weeks if you're a good candidate." Start it today. Jared, Naomi began, you need a kidney. I have two. The math is simple. It's not simple, Naomi's composure cracked. It's surgery, risk, you potentially giving up your health for someone you don't even know. Then let me get to know you. Jared leaned forward, holding her gaze. While they're running tests, let me know who you are. Let me understand why 37 families trust you. Let me see what was worth saving. This is insane, Naomi whispered, but hope kindled in her eyes despite protests. Probably. But I've spent 42 years being completely sane, measuring every decision by risk and return. Jared felt something loosening in his chest. Maybe it's time I did something that only makes sense to my heart. Have you ever had someone show you kindness in your darkest moment, only to realize later you never properly thanked them? Tell me your story in the comments. Let me know where you're watching from, and hit subscribe if this story is already pulling at your heartstrings. After Dr. Tanner left, silence settled. Naomi wouldn't meet his eyes. You don't have to do this, she said quietly. I know. I'm not your responsibility. You made yourself mine when you wrote my name. Jared waited until she looked at him. Whether you meant to or not, you connected us, and I'm not the kind of man who walks away from that. Naomi studied his face, searching for something. Sincerity. Proof he meant it. Whatever she found satisfied her because she finally nodded, small but monumental. The Foster family, she began, voice taking on professional cadence. 17-year-old daughter with eating disorder, parents overwhelmed, no mental health coverage. Jared listened as Naomi described case after case. The Williamson family navigating their son's suicide attempt. The Garcia family fighting for custody. Mrs. Jacobs's husband recovering from stroke. Each family was a novel of complexity, and Naomi was the thread connecting them all, translating medical complexity into human terms, fighting battles they couldn't fight, making families feel heard when the system wanted to reduce them to numbers. How do you do it? Jared asked. How do you carry all that pain? It's not pain, it's purpose. Naomi's expression softened. These families don't have anyone else. I'm handling double the recommended caseload, but if I don't, who helps them? But who helps you? The question landed like a stone. Naomi's professional mask cracked, revealing the exhausted, frightened woman beneath, someone who'd spent so long being strong for others that she'd forgotten how to accept help. I don't need help, she said hollowly. Naomi, your heart stopped twice tonight. I'm handling it. You're dying. Jared gentled his voice, reaching for her hand again. You're literally dying while working to save others. That's not handling it. That's martyrdom. When was the last time someone took care of you? The question came out intense. When did someone make sure you ate properly, got enough sleep, took your medications? Naomi was quiet so long he thought she might not answer. I don't remember. The admission broke something in Jared. This extraordinary woman couldn't remember the last time someone cared for her. The injustice settled like a weight, and with it came determination he'd never felt before. Then let me be the first in a very long time. He squeezed her hand. Let me take care of you, Naomi. While we figure out if I can donate, let me make sure someone puts you first for once. Why? The question was almost a plea. Why do you care so much about a stranger? Jared considered seriously, searching for truth. Because you saved my life. And when you could have walked past, could have ignored a man having a breakdown, you stopped. You saw me. For the first time in forever, someone treated me like a human being instead of a business opportunity. He paused. And because when I look at you, I see someone who's forgotten that her life has as much value as the lives she's fighting to save. Someone needs to remind you. I'd like it to be me. Tears tracked down Naomi's cheeks. I don't know how to do this. How to let someone help me. Then let me teach you. One day at a time. Naomi studied his face, weight of her gaze like physical touch. She was reading him, assessing, trying to determine if he meant it or if this was guilt-driven impulse. Whatever she saw satisfied her. She nodded, small surrender that felt monumental. Okay, but just until I'm back on my feet. Just until you're back on my feet, Jared agreed, though both knew he was already planning for much longer. Chapter 2. Pre-dawn light painted Manhattan's skyline in gold and pink when Jared finally left Naomi's room. Dr. Tanner had insisted she needed rest. Despite protests about the foster family's Monday appointment, exhaustion won. She'd fallen asleep mid-sentence, hand still in his, and Jared sat another hour watching her breathe. He stopped at the nurse's station. Dr. Tanner was reviewing charts with tired efficiency. "I'm serious about the donor evaluation," he said without preamble. Dr. Tanner looked up, sharp eyes seeing past every defense. "Kidney donation isn't something to decide at 4 in the morning after an emotional encounter. It's not an impulse. Test me. Major surgery, 6 weeks recovery, potential complications. I understand that without a transplant, she dies. That the waiting list is 3 to 5 years she doesn't have. That I have 2 healthy kidneys and she needs 1. Jared leaned against the counter. "What else do I need to understand?" "That even if you're compatible, there are no guarantees. Rejection rates, complications, long-term health implications." Dr. Tanner set down her tablet. "This isn't a business transaction. This is your body, your health, your life. Then it's my choice to make." They stared at each other. Finally, Dr. Tanner nodded. "I'll have the transplant coordinator contact you Monday. Comprehensive medical history, blood work, imaging studies, 6 to 8 weeks minimum." "Make it 4. That's not, she doesn't have 8 weeks. Urgency colored his voice, fear he'd been pushing down since seeing Naomi's pallor. "You said her heart is showing strain. How long does she have at 15%? Dr. Tanner's hesitation told him everything. "Months, maybe less if she continues working herself into the ground." "Then we don't have time for leisurely evaluation. Rush it. I'll pay whatever it costs to expedite testing, get specialists to review results immediately." "Money can't speed up biology." "No, but it can ensure bureaucracy doesn't slow it down." Jared pulled out his wallet, extracting a business card. "That's my attorney. Have hospital administration contact him about funding for your social work department, whatever budget you need to hire enough. Staff so Naomi's 37 cases can be redistributed. She can't keep working this way." Dr. Tanner took the card, expression shifting to something like respect mixed with skepticism. "You're trying to buy her health." "I'm trying to remove the obstacles killing her. She won't stop if families are suffering. So let's make sure they're not. Hire more social workers, reduce caseloads, create the support structure that should have existed all along." "Why are you doing this, really?" "Because 3 months ago I was having a panic attack in a supply closet, and a stranger stopped to help me breathe. She didn't know my name, didn't want anything, just saw someone in pain and offered kindness." Jared's voice roughened. "The world doesn't have enough people like Naomi Tipton. I'm not going to watch her die because the system couldn't be bothered to protect her." Something shifted in Dr. Tanner's expression, skepticism fading to cautious alliance. "She's going to fight you, on all of it. Naomi doesn't accept help easily." "Then I'll have to be persistent." "Persistent or controlling? There's a fine line, Mr. Goldberg." The warning landed. He'd spent his career controlling situations, using money and influence to bend reality. But Naomi wasn't a business deal. She was a woman who'd forgotten how to let anyone be strong for her. Forcing help would only push her away. "Then I'll learn where that line is," Jared said quietly. "And I'll try very hard not to cross it." Dr. Tanner nodded slowly. "Monday morning, transplant coordinator will call. Naomi starts dialysis Monday afternoon. She'll need someone to drive her home. First session leaves patients exhausted and disoriented. I'll be there." Jared left as the sun cleared the horizon. He should have been exhausted, but felt more awake than he had in years, mind racing with plans and possibilities. His phone buzzed with texts he'd ignored all night. Richard's messages grew increasingly concerned. The last one, sent at 3:47 a.m. "If you're dead in a ditch, I'm going to be very annoyed." Jared called instead of texting. Richard answered on the first ring. "Jesus Christ, Jared, where the hell have you been?" "Hospital." "What?" Richard's voice shifted to concern. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine, but I need you to clear my schedule for the next week." "Clear your schedule? We have the Nakamura deal closing Tuesday, the site visit Wednesday." "Reschedule all of it. I can't just reschedule." "Yes, you can. Your managing partner. Manage." Jared knew he was being unreasonable, but something had shifted in his priorities. Business felt secondary to something more important. Richard was quiet for a long moment. "What's going on? Who's in the hospital?" "A friend. She's sick and she needs help. She? Richard's tone sharpened with interest. The woman you've been distracted about for 3 months? Jared felt surprise cut through exhaustion. How did you? Because I've known you for 15 years, and I've never seen you zone out during acquisitions meetings. Not until 3 months ago. Richard paused. Is this the supply closet woman? How do you know about that? Your assistant told me you had a panic attack at Memorial. I put 2 and 2 together when you started acting like a human being with feelings. Richard's voice gentled. Is she okay? No. End-stage kidney failure. She collapsed last night during her shift. Jared explained the whole situation, the emergency contact, the supply closet connection, the 37 families, Dr. Tanner's warnings. Richard listened without interrupting. When Jared finished, silence stretched for several seconds. You're going to donate your kidney, Richard said finally, not a question. If I'm compatible. Jared, that's... Richard paused, searching for words. That's either the most selfless thing you've ever done or the most insane. Probably both. Look, I'll handle the schedule. Nakamura can wait. But Jared, be careful. Not about the surgery, though that terrifies me too. Be careful with your heart. You fall hard when you finally fall. The words hit closer than Jared wanted to admit. I barely know her. You offered her a kidney after one conversation. I think we're past barely knowing her. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Shanice Williams, Naomi's friend. Dr. Tanner gave me your number. We need to talk. Jared stared at the message, concern tightening in his chest. He called immediately. Mr. Goldberg, a woman's voice answered, professional but with protective fury. This is Shanice. I'm Naomi's best friend, and before you get any further involved, you and I are going to have a conversation. I'm listening. Not over the phone. Naomi's apartment, 2 p.m. today. Don't be late. She rattled off an address in Brooklyn. And Mr. Goldberg, if you're using her vulnerability to play hero, if you hurt her in any way, you're going to wish you'd stayed in your supply closet. Are we clear? Despite the threat, or maybe because of it, Jared smiled. Naomi had someone fierce in her corner. Crystal clear, I'll be there. At 1:45 p.m., Jared stood outside Naomi's building in Brooklyn, a modest 6-story walk-up that had seen better decades. The neighborhood was gentrifying, but not yet gentrified. Kids played on the sidewalk, music drifted from open windows, cooking spices made the street feel alive in ways his sterile Manhattan neighborhood never managed. Naomi's apartment was 4B. Jared climbed narrow stairs, noting worn carpet and flickering hallway lights. This was where she lived while working 70-hour weeks, where she came home exhausted from saving families, where she'd been slowly dying while refusing to stop. He knocked. The door opened immediately. The woman on the other side was striking. African-American, mid-30s, natural hair and elaborate updo, wearing scrubs. Her eyes were sharp, assessing, currently filled with protective suspicion. Shanice Williams. She didn't offer her hand. Come in. Naomi's apartment was small but meticulously organized. Books lined makeshift shelves, photos covered one wall, families she'd helped rather than her own relatives, and plants thrived despite the urban setting. It felt warm, lived in, full of personality that made his penthouse seem emptier by comparison. Sit, Shanice ordered, gesturing to a worn but comfortable couch. She took the chair across from him, posture radiating protective authority. Dr. Tanner told me about your kidney donation offer. She also told me you've known Naomi for all of 12 hours, and you're already trying to reorganize her life. I'm trying to help. Men always think they're helping when they're really controlling. Shanice leaned forward, gaze intense. Naomi has spent her entire adult life being strong for everyone else. She doesn't know how to accept help, because everyone who was supposed to help her failed. Foster care system, social services, medical establishment, they all failed her. So she learned to do everything herself. I'm not trying to control her. Then what are you trying to do? Be honest, because I know men like you. Rich, successful, used to getting what you want. You see someone struggling and think you can throw money at it and fix it. Jared felt the accusation land, felt truth in it, mixing with genuine intentions. You're not entirely wrong. I'm used to solving problems with resources, but that's not what this is. Then what is it? He searched for words that would satisfy this fierce guardian while being honest about motivations he didn't fully understand. 3 months ago, I was at my lowest point. Business partner betraying me, realizing my life had no meaning beyond quarterly profits, having a panic attack in a hospital supply closet. And your friend stopped. She didn't know who I was, didn't want anything. She just saw someone suffering and helped. Shanice's expression softened fractionally. I left without thanking her. Spent 3 months trying to forget that moment because it scared me how much her kindness mattered. And last night I got a call that she'd listed me as her emergency contact, and I realized— Jared paused, struggling with vulnerability. I realized that she'd seen something in me worth saving, and now she's dying, and I have a chance to prove she was right. By donating a kidney? By being someone she can count on, the way she was someone I counted on even though I didn't deserve it. Shanice studied him, protective suspicion gradually shifting to cautious assessment. Naomi doesn't let people help her. She's going to fight you on every offer of assistance. She's going to insist she's fine when she's not. She's going to try to push you away because that's safer than risking disappointment. I know. And you're still willing to deal with that? Yes. Why? Really. Not the noble "she saved me" story. Why are you actually doing this? Jared met Shanice's eyes directly, deciding Naomi's best friend deserved complete honesty. Because when I saw her face last night, something in me recognized her, not just from the supply closet, something deeper. And then she woke up and she looked at me with those eyes that see too much, and I thought, this woman matters. Not to the 37 families, not to the hospital system. To me, she matters to me. You've known her 12 hours. Some connections don't need time to be real. Shanice was quiet, protective posture gradually relaxing. Okay, here's what you need to know. She's been on her own since she was 18. Foster care failed her. The system failed her. Every adult who was supposed to protect her failed her. So she learned to be the person who helps others, because at least then she has control. Control over what? Over not being helpless again. Over making sure other people don't experience what she experienced. Shanice's voice gentled. Her mother died of kidney disease when Naomi was 14. Same disease she has now. She watched her mother choose between medication and rent, watched her mother slowly die because the system made healthcare impossible to navigate. The revelation hit like a physical blow. Naomi wasn't just dying of kidney failure, she was dying of the same disease that killed her mother. She's repeating her mother's story. Exactly. And she can't see it because she's too focused on making sure no one else has to watch their parent die the way she did. Shanice met his eyes steadily. That's why she won't stop working. That's why she carries 37 cases. Because every family she helps is a family that doesn't become her teenage self. Jared felt understanding settle over him, heavy and clarifying. So when I offer to help, she sees it as losing control, as becoming the helpless teenager again, as repeating the pattern she spent 20 years trying to break. Then how do I help her without making her feel helpless? Shanice smiled for the first time, approval flickering. That's the right question. Most men would ask, how do I make her accept help? You're asking how to help without taking away her agency. So what's the answer? Partnership, not rescuing, not controlling. Partnership. Shanice leaned forward, voice taking on a teacher's cadence. Don't tell her what to do, ask her what she needs. Don't take over her life. Find ways to support the life she's already built. Don't make her feel like a project. Make her feel like an equal partner in whatever this becomes. Jared absorbed this, recognizing wisdom earned through years of friendship with a complicated, wounded, extraordinary woman. She's going to push me away anyway. Probably. She pushes everyone away eventually. Shanice paused, then added softly, but maybe you'll be stubborn enough to stay. That's the plan. Good. Because she needs someone to be stubborn for her while she's being stubborn for everyone. Else, Shanice stood. Dr. Tanner is discharging her at 6 tonight. She's going to insist on taking public transportation home. Don't let her. She'll be exhausted and dizzy. I'll be there. And Mr. Goldberg? Shanice walked him to the door, protective authority returning. Naomi is my family. the only family I've got. If you hurt her, I will destroy you in ways that have nothing to do with business or money. I will break your heart the way you broke hers. Are we clear? Completely clear. Jared met her fierce gaze steadily. But I'm not going to hurt her. Everyone says that. Most people are wrong. Then I'll have to be part of the minority. Shanice hesitated, then added, there's something else you should know about Naomi's past relationships. Jared waited, sensing this was important. She was engaged once, 7 years ago. Guy named Marcus, successful attorney, charming, seemed perfect. Shanice's expression darkened. Until Naomi's mother got really sick. Then Marcus couldn't handle it. Told her she was too focused on someone else's problems and that he needed a partner who could prioritize their relationship. Jared felt anger flash hot. He left her when her mother was dying? 2 months before her mother passed, Naomi was 27, drowning in medical bills and grief, and the man who promised to love her in sickness and in health walked away because her crisis was inconvenient. Shanice met his eyes directly. That's why she doesn't trust easily. That's why she pushes people away. Because the last time she needed someone, they proved her worst fears true. Understanding settled over Jared like a weight. No wonder Naomi fought accepting help so fiercely. No wonder she'd built walls around her heart. She'd been abandoned in her darkest hour once before. I'm not Marcus, Jared said quietly. Prove it. Not with words, with consistency. Show up and stay, especially when it gets hard. 2 hours before Naomi's discharge, an unexpected visitor appeared at her hospital room door. Miss Tipton, I'm Roxanne Goldberg, Jared's mother. The woman in her mid-60s was elegant, with silver hair styled perfectly and sharp blue eyes that reminded Naomi immediately of her son. But where Jared's eyes held guarded caution, Roxanne's radiated warmth mixed with maternal concern. Jared didn't mention, Naomi started. He doesn't know I'm here. I called his assistant after Richard told me about the emergency contact situation. Roxanne moved into the room without invitation, settling into the visitor's chair with the confidence of someone accustomed to being wherever she chose. I wanted to meet the woman who managed to break through my son's carefully constructed walls. Naomi felt suddenly exposed in her hospital gown. We barely know each other. And yet he's rearranging his entire life for you, offering you his kidney. Roxanne's gaze was assessing, but not unkind. Do you know the last time Jared did something that couldn't be justified by profit margins? Never. Not once in 42 years. I didn't ask him to. No, you did something far more powerful. You saw him, really saw him when he was at his most vulnerable. Roxanne leaned forward. My son has been emotionally closed off since his father left. Built an empire, but forgot how to build a life. You reminded him what actually matters. I'm just a social worker who helped him through a panic attack. You're the woman who's teaching my son to be human again. Roxanne's voice softened. Thank you for that. And for giving me hope that he won't die alone in that sterile penthouse. The words echoed what Jared had told her about Richard's drunken accusation, and Naomi realized this family had been watching him isolate himself for years, powerless to break through. He's the one helping me, Naomi said quietly. Then you're helping each other. That's what love should be. Roxanne stood, squeezing Naomi's hand. I'll be at the surgery, both surgeries, because you're family now, whether either of you is ready to admit it yet. At 5:30, Jared returned to Memorial Hospital with a bag containing soft clothes from an expensive boutique, takeout from a restaurant Shanice had recommended, and determination to approach this correctly, not as rescue mission, as partnership. He found Naomi in room 312, dressed in the standard discharge outfit that made her look even smaller. She was sitting on the bed's edge, staring at discharge papers with exhaustion mixed with stubborn determination. You came back, she said when she noticed him. I told you I would. People say a lot of things they don't mean, but there was something in her voice, not quite hope, but maybe the distant possibility of hope. I brought you real clothes. Jared set the bag beside her. And food, because Shanice said you never eat when you're stressed. Naomi's eyes widened. You met Shanice? She invited me to your apartment, gave me a very clear explanation of all the ways she'd destroy me if I hurt you. Despite herself, Naomi smiled. That sounds like Shanice. She cares about you a lot. She's the closest thing to family I have. Naomi looked at the bag of clothes. You didn't have to do this. I know, but I wanted to. Jared sat in the chair beside the bed, careful to give her space while being present. How are you feeling? Tired, dizzy, frustrated that I'm being discharged when the foster family's appointment is Monday and I haven't prepared them. The foster family will be okay for one weekend. You don't understand. Their daughter's treatment program starts Monday. If they're not prepared, then one of your colleagues will help them, or they'll figure it out, or they'll wait until you're strong enough to help properly. Jared kept his voice gentle, channeling Shanice's advice. You can't help anyone if you collapse again. Naomi's jaw tightened. I hate this. Hate being weak. Hate needing help. Hate that my body is failing when people need me. Your body isn't failing. It has a disease. There's a difference. Jared understood the frustration, the anger at circumstances beyond control. 3 months ago, I was having a panic attack in a supply closet. My business partner had just tried to destroy everything I'd built. I felt like my heart was going to explode, like I couldn't breathe, and I hated it. Hated that my body had betrayed me, that I'd lost control, that I needed help. Naomi was watching him now, attention fully focused. And then you appeared. You didn't tell me I was being weak or should have handled things better. You just helped me breathe, made me feel like having a crisis didn't make me broken. Jared met her eyes steadily. That's what I'm trying to do for you now. Not fix you, not save you. Just help you breathe until you're strong enough to handle things yourself. Silence filled the room. Naomi's eyes glistened with tears. She seemed determined not to shed. I'm not good at accepting help. I noticed. Shanice mentioned it too, multiple times. That surprised a small laugh from her. She really did threaten to destroy you, didn't she? Very convincingly. I believe she used the phrase, break your heart the way you broke hers. She's protective. Good. You should have people who are protective of you. Jared paused. Let me be one of those people. Naomi studied his face, some internal debate playing out behind those extraordinary eyes. Finally, she nodded. Small, tentative, but a nod nonetheless. Okay, but just until I'm back on my feet. Just until you're back on your feet, Jared agreed, knowing both that back on her feet was a finish line that kept moving. While Naomi changed, Jared unpacked food. Grilled salmon, roasted vegetables, quinoa, all kidney-friendly based on research he'd done. When she emerged, his breath caught. The soft clothes transformed her, or revealed what the hospital gown had hidden, that beneath illness, beneath exhaustion, Naomi Tipton was stunning. The cashmere sweater brought out warmth in her brown skin. The leggings showed curves the gown had concealed. You're staring, she said, hint of amusement in her voice. Sorry, the clothes fit well. They fit perfectly, which is suspicious considering you don't know my size. I may have texted Shanice for guidance. That surprised a real laugh from her, the first genuine laugh he'd heard. It transformed her face completely, showing him who she was when not weighed down by 37 families' worth of responsibility. You two are conspiring against me already? Conspiring for you. There's a difference. Jared gestured to the food. Sit, eat, then I'll drive you home. I can take the subway. Naomi. The single word, spoken with gentle finality, stopped her protest. She sat, eyeing the food containers with hunger mixed with resistance to accepting another thing from him. Please eat, Jared said softly. Shanice said you never eat. When you're stressed, and I'm guessing nearly dying qualifies as stressful. Naomi picked up a fork, taking a small bite of salmon, her eyes closed in what looked like pleasure. She took another bite, then another, initial resistance giving way to genuine hunger. They ate in comfortable silence, the awkwardness of morning replaced by something easier. Jared watched her relax incrementally, shoulders dropping, expression softening, protective walls cracking under simple comfort of good food, and someone caring whether she ate it. This is really good, she said finally. It's from a place Shanice recommended. You really did get thorough instructions. I'm a thorough person. Jared paused. I want to do this right, Naomi. I want to help you in ways that actually help, not in ways that make me feel good about helping. So if I overstep, if I do something that makes you uncomfortable, tell me. I'll listen. She set down her fork, studying him with those eyes that saw too much. Why does this matter so much to you? Really? It was the same question Shanice had asked. Jared could give the noble answer that she'd helped him, that he wanted to return the favor. But sitting here in the quiet of her hospital room, watching her slowly trust him enough to eat food he'd brought, he knew the truth was more complicated. Because you matter, he said simply. I can't explain why. I barely know you. But when I got that call this morning, when I walked into this room and saw you unconscious, something in me broke open. And when you woke up and looked at me, he paused, struggling to articulate something he barely understood himself. I've spent 42 years measuring everything by profit and loss, success and failure, risk and return, and none of those calculations matter when I look at you. Naomi's eyes glistened. That's the most honest thing anyone's said to me in years. Then people haven't been paying attention. Or they've been paying attention to what I can do for them, not who I actually am. The words landed like revelation. Of course, Naomi spent her life helping others, being needed, solving impossible problems. People saw her competence, her dedication, her willingness to sacrifice. But who saw the woman beneath? Who cared about her separate from what she could provide? I want to know who you are, Jared said. Not what you do, not how you help people. Who you are when you're not saving everyone else. I don't know if I remember who that is. Then let's figure it out together. The vulnerability in her expression made something clench in Jared's chest. This extraordinary woman who fought so fiercely for others had forgotten how to fight for herself, had forgotten, or maybe never learned, that she had value beyond her usefulness. I'm scared, she admitted quietly. Of what? Of this. Of you. Of needing someone and then having them leave when I'm not useful anymore. The confession broke Jared's heart. I'm not leaving. Everyone leaves. Then I'll be the first person who stays. He reached across the bedside table, taking her hand gently. I'm not saying I'll be perfect. I'll probably overstep. I'll definitely try to control things I shouldn't. But I won't leave. That's a promise. Naomi stared at their joined hands, her thumb tracing small circles on his palm in a gesture that felt half unconscious, half deliberate. You barely know me. So let me get to know you, starting with getting you home safely and making sure you rest this weekend. After Dr. Tanner's final discharge instructions, Jared helped Naomi gather her few belongings. The wheelchair ride to the hospital entrance felt surreal. Naomi sat stiffly, clearly hating being pushed, hating the visible evidence of her weakness. The drive to Brooklyn was quiet, Naomi's exhaustion finally overwhelming resistance to accepting help. She dozed in the passenger seat, head tilted against the window, and Jared found himself stealing glances at her profile, the elegant line of her neck, the way her locks framed her face, the vulnerable curve of her mouth relaxed in sleep. He was in so much trouble. Falling for someone after one day was ridiculous. Offering a kidney to a near stranger was insane. Reorganizing his entire life around someone else's crisis violated every principle of self-preservation. But looking at Naomi sleeping in his passenger seat, trusting him enough to let down her guard even temporarily, Jared knew he'd already passed the point of no return. Whatever this was, attraction, obsession, the universe's way of correcting his empty existence, he was committed. For better or worse, Naomi Tipton had become the most important thing in his carefully constructed life, and he was going to prove to her and to himself that some connections were worth every risk. Chapter 3. Naomi woke as Jared pulled up to her building, disoriented before memory returned. The hospital, the discharge, the confession that had terrified her even as it thrilled her. I'm falling for you faster than I've ever fallen for anyone. No one had ever said anything like that to her before. We're here, Jared said softly. Naomi looked up at her building, suddenly seeing it through his eyes. The peeling paint, the cracked concrete steps, the general shabbiness. Compared to what she imagined his penthouse looked like, her apartment must seem impossibly small and inadequate. It's not much, she said, hating the defensive note in her voice. It's home. That's more than my penthouse will ever be. The sincerity in his voice made something warm unfurl in her chest. Jared came around to help her out of the car, his hand gentle on her elbow, and Naomi found herself leaning into his strength more than she wanted to admit. The exhaustion was bone deep now. The stairs to her fourth-floor walk-up suddenly seemed insurmountable. Naomi paused at the bottom, gathering her energy, and felt Jared's assessing gaze. "Elevator broken?" he asked. "No. Elevator. Just stairs." Without asking permission, Jared scooped her into his arms. Naomi gasped, her hands instinctively going to his shoulders for balance. "Jared, put me down." "No." He started up the stairs with steady confidence. "You're exhausted, dizzy, and you just got discharged from the hospital. I'm carrying you up 4 flights of stairs and you're going to accept it gracefully." "This is not accepting help gracefully. Then accept it ungracefully. But I'm still carrying you." Naomi wanted to protest further, but truthfully, being held felt too good to fight. Jared's arms were strong and steady, his chest solid against her side, and for the first time in longer than she could remember, Naomi let herself feel protected rather than protective. "You're going to hurt your back," she muttered, but without real conviction. "I'll risk it." By the third-floor landing, Naomi had stopped protesting and simply let herself be carried. Jared's breathing was steady despite the exertion. She found herself studying his profile, the strong jaw, the silver threading his dark hair, the concentration in his expression. He was handsome in a way that probably intimidated most people, all sharp edges and controlled power. But holding her now, he seemed almost gentle, as if she were something precious he was determined not to break. At her door, he set her down carefully, but kept one hand on her waist while she fumbled for keys. The small gesture, making sure she was steady before releasing her completely, spoke volumes about the kind of attention he paid to details most people missed. Her apartment felt different with Jared in it. Smaller, certainly, but also somehow more alive. He looked around with genuine interest, taking in the bookshelves crammed with social work texts and novels, the photos of families she'd helped, the plants thriving on her windowsill. "You have a good home," he said, and the observation wasn't patronizing or pitying, just honest appreciation. "It's small. It's warm. Personal. Everything in here tells a story about who you are." Jared turned to face her fully. "My penthouse is 5 times this size and completely empty of personality. If I disappeared tomorrow, nothing in it would suggest I'd ever lived there." The confession was delivered matter-of-factly, but Naomi heard the loneliness beneath it. This man who seemed to have everything, wealth, success, power, lived in a space that reflected nothing of his inner life. "That's sad," she said softly. "It is. But maybe you can teach me how to make a space feel like home." Jared's smile was self-deprecating. "Add it to the list of things I need to learn from you." "What else is on this list?" "How to care about something beyond profit margins. How to be vulnerable without feeling like I'm losing control. How to let someone matter even when it terrifies me." He paused, then added more quietly, "How to love someone selflessly instead of transactionally." The words settled between them, heavy with implication. Naomi felt her heart rate pick up, awareness crackling through the exhaustion. This was moving too fast, felt too intense, violated every rule of self-preservation she'd developed over 20 years of protecting herself from disappointment. But it also felt inevitable, like they'd been circling each other long before that supply closet encounter, and everything since had been the universe correcting their trajectories until they collided. "You should rest," Jared said, breaking the charged moment. "Doctor's orders, where's your bedroom?" "Through there," Naomi gestured to the doorway off the living room, "but I'm fine on the couch." "Bedroom, real rest. I'll be right here if you need anything." The protectiveness in his voice made Naomi's resistance crumble. She was exhausted enough that arguing felt like more effort than simply accepting help. "Fine, but you don't have to stay." "I'm staying, at least until Shanice gets here to take over." Despite her exhaustion, Naomi smiled. "She really did threaten you thoroughly." "Very thoroughly. I respect her commitment to your well-being." In her bedroom, Naomi changed into comfortable sleep clothes while Jared waited in the living room. When she emerged, he was studying the photos on her wall. Dozens of families, captured in moments of hope or triumph or simple relief. "These are all people you've helped?" he asked. "Most of them." Naomi moved to stand beside him, looking at faces that represented years of her life's work. That's the Morrison family. Their son attempted suicide last year. He's in college now, doing really well. Jared studied each photo with genuine attention. You've changed so many lives. I tried. Some more successfully than others. Don't diminish it. Look at all these faces. Look at how they're looking at you in these photos, like you hung the moon. Jared turned to face her. You are extraordinary, Naomi Tipton. I hope you know that. The sincerity in his voice, the intensity of his gaze, made Naomi's throat tighten with emotion. She'd spent years telling herself that her work mattered, that helping others was its own reward. But hearing someone recognize what she'd sacrificed, what she'd built, what she'd given, it broke something open inside her that she'd kept carefully locked. Thank you, she whispered, not trusting her voice to say more. Go rest. I'll be right here. In her bedroom, Naomi lay down with the intention of staying awake, just resting her eyes, not actually sleeping while a virtual stranger sat in her living room. But exhaustion pulled her under within minutes, dragging her into deep, dreamless sleep. She woke hours later to the sound of voices in her living room, Jared's deep tones, and Shanice's concerned alto, speaking in hushed tones. Serious about the kidney donation? Shanice was asking. Completely serious. I meet with the transplant coordinator tomorrow to start the evaluation process. That's, insane. You realize that, right? Offering to give a vital organ to someone you just met? Yes, but it's the right kind of insane. There was a pause, then Shanice spoke more quietly. She's going to fight you on everything. She doesn't know how to let people in. I'm getting that impression, but I'm not going anywhere. People always say that. They mean it when they say it. But Naomi has a way of pushing people away when she needs them most, and most people eventually leave when it gets too hard. Then I'll have to prove I'm not most people. Naomi felt something warm and terrifying settle in her chest at the determination in Jared's voice. She should announce herself, let them know she was awake. But there was something valuable about hearing Jared and Shanice discuss her without performing for her benefit. Why are you doing this? Shanice asked. Really? Not the noble story about her helping you. Why are you actually willing to give her a kidney? Jared was quiet for a long moment. Have you ever met someone and felt like your life divided into before and after that moment? Like everything that came before was just preparation for meeting them? That's very romantic for a man who made his fortune in commercial real estate. I know. It's completely irrational. I should be terrified of how fast this is happening, how much I already care about someone I barely know. But all I feel is certain. Like my subconscious recognized something my conscious mind took 3 months to accept. Which is that Naomi matters, not just to the 37 families she's helping, to me. She matters to me in ways I can't fully articulate yet, but I know with absolute certainty that I can't let her die when I have the power to prevent it. Naomi felt tears tracking down her face, overwhelmed by the raw honesty in Jared's voice. No one had ever spoken about her like that, as if her existence itself had value separate from what she could provide or how she could help. Okay, Shanice said finally. I believe you're sincere. But Jared, you need to understand something about Naomi. She spent her whole life being the strong one, being the helper. Accepting care feels like weakness to her, like she's failing somehow. If you push too hard, if you try to control rather than support, you'll lose her. I understand. I'm learning. Good. Because she deserves someone who sees her, not just what she does. Someone who values her for who she is, not who she is for them. I see her. And what I see terrifies me and compels me in equal measure. Naomi closed her eyes, processing the conversation. She should feel angry at being discussed, violated that her privacy was being negotiated without her input. But instead, she felt seen in a way she'd never experienced, not as a social worker, not as a helper, not as someone useful. As a woman worth fighting for, worth staying for, worth the terrifying vulnerability of genuine connection. She must have made some sound, because suddenly both voices stopped. A moment later, her bedroom door opened and Shanice appeared, relief flooding her face when she saw Naomi awake. Hey, how are you feeling? Like I got hit by a truck that then backed up and hit me again. Shanice moved to sit on the edge of the bed, her hand automatically checking Naomi's forehead for fever. Jared said the discharge went smoothly. Dr. Tanner wasn't happy about you trying to leave AMA earlier. I had work. You had a cardiac arrest. Work can wait. After Shanice left with strict instructions for Jared about medication schedules and warning signs, Naomi emerged from her bedroom to find him in her small kitchen, making tea from supplies he must have bought. You went shopping? She asked from the doorway. Jared turned, his expression softening when he saw her. Shanice texted me a list of things you'd need. Tea, easy-to-digest foods, electrolyte drinks for post-dialysis. I stocked your kitchen while you were sleeping. You didn't have to. I know, but I wanted to. He poured tea into 2 mugs, bringing one to her. How are you feeling? Exhausted, dizzy, emotionally overwhelmed. Naomi accepted the tea, the warmth seeping into her hands. I heard you and Shanice talking. Jared's expression shifted to something more guarded. How much did you hear? Enough to know that you told her our connection feels inevitable, that I matter to you in ways you can't articulate. Naomi met his eyes directly. That your life divided into before and after meeting me. For a moment, Jared looked uncertain, an expression she suspected he rarely wore. Then his shoulders straightened, and she watched him make the choice to be vulnerable rather than defensive. It's true, all of it. I know it's too soon, I know it seems irrational, but it's how I feel. He set down his own tea, moving closer. You can tell me it's too fast, that you need space, that you're not ready for this, but I won't lie about what's happening to me. What is happening to you? I'm falling in love with you. The words were delivered with the same certainty he probably used in business negotiations. I've been falling since I saw your face in that hospital bed, and I've been in freefall since you woke up and looked at me like maybe I mattered too. Naomi's breath caught, her heart racing in a way that had nothing to do with kidney failure. Jared, you don't have to say it back. You don't have to feel the same way. But I need you to know that this is real for me. That when I offered my kidney, when I rearranged my schedule, when I spent 4 hours in your living room making sure you were okay, it wasn't guilt or obligation or some savior complex. It was because you matter. Because losing you would break something in me I didn't even know existed until I met you. The confession hung between them, raw and honest in a way that terrified Naomi even as it drew her closer. She should retreat, should protect herself, should remember that people always left eventually, and getting attached only made the abandonment hurt worse. But standing in her small kitchen with this man who'd given her more in 2 days than most people offered in years, Naomi found she couldn't retreat, couldn't protect herself from something that might actually be worth the risk. I'm scared, she whispered, moving closer until they were barely a foot apart. So am I. What if this doesn't work? What if it does? The question was a challenge and an invitation simultaneously. Naomi studied Jared's face, the intensity in his blue eyes, the vulnerability in the set of his mouth, the way he was holding himself carefully still as if afraid one wrong move would send her running. I don't know how to do this, she admitted. How to let someone in, how to accept care without feeling weak, how to need someone without losing myself. Then we'll figure it out together, one day at a time, starting with letting me stay tonight to make sure you're okay. You want to stay here? All night? On your couch, with your permission, just to make sure you don't have complications from the discharge. Jared paused, then added more softly, and because the thought of leaving you alone terrifies me more than you can possibly imagine. Naomi should say no, should maintain boundaries, should protect her space, should remember that she'd known this man for less than 48 hours. But the alternative, being alone in her apartment, managing her fear and exhaustion without support, felt suddenly unbearable. Okay, she heard herself say. You can stay. Relief flooded Jared's face. Thank you. They spent the evening in careful domesticity that felt both strange and natural. Jared made dinner from the kidney-friendly ingredients he'd stocked while Naomi sat at her small kitchen table and tried not to think about how easily he moved through her space, how right it felt to have him there, filling the silence she'd grown accustomed to with his presence. Tell me about the Morrison family, Jared said while they ate. Naomi found herself talking about Tyler Morrison's suicide attempt, the parents' desperate search for help, the broken mental health care system that made treatment nearly impossible to access. Jared listened with intense attention, asking intelligent questions that revealed he was genuinely trying to understand. What if there was a better way? Jared leaned forward, his business mind clearly engaging with the problem. What if instead of you handling 37 cases alone, you had a team? Funding for more social workers, reduced caseloads, support staff to handle administrative work so advocates can focus on actual advocacy. That would be incredible. But hospital budgets don't work that way. What if funding came from outside the hospital? A foundation dedicated to supporting family advocacy. Jared's eyes lit up with intensity. You could expand the model beyond Memorial Hospital. Create a PAMOT network of supported advocates across the city. Naomi felt something flutter in her chest. Not quite hope, because hope felt dangerous, but possibility. That would require significant funding, millions probably, to do it properly. I have millions, many millions actually, and no particularly meaningful way to spend them. Jared reached across the table, taking her hand. What if we built something together? Your expertise in family advocacy, my resources to make it sustainable. A foundation that actually changes the system instead of just helping families navigate a broken one. Jared, Naomi struggled to process what he was suggesting. That's an incredible idea, but you can't just commit millions of dollars to something because we had one conversation about it. Why not? His thumb traced circles on her palm, the gentle touch distracting. Think about it. Really think about it. What could you accomplish if you had proper funding, if you could hire enough staff to reduce caseloads to manageable levels? Naomi let herself imagine it, a world where she didn't have to choose which families to help because there weren't enough hours in the day, where social workers weren't drowning under impossible caseloads. It would be transformative, she admitted. Then let's do it. After your transplant, after you're healthy again, let's build something that actually makes a difference. The casual way he said, after your transplant, as if it were already decided, as if his kidney were already hers, should have annoyed her. But instead, Naomi found it oddly comforting. Jared's certainty that they'd get through this felt like an anchor in the chaos of her fear. The knock on Naomi's apartment door came at 9 p.m., unexpected and insistent. Jared moved to answer it before Naomi could object, and she watched his entire body go rigid when he saw who stood on the other side. Hello, Jared. The woman was stunning, tall, blonde, impeccably dressed in designer clothes that screamed Manhattan elite. Her eyes swept past Jared to land on Naomi with cool assessment. Amanda. Jared's voice was carefully neutral. What are you doing here? Richard told me about your kidney donation. I had to see for myself if you'd completely lost your mind. Amanda stepped into the apartment without invitation, her gaze cataloging everything. The small space, the modest furnishings, Naomi in comfortable lounge clothes. So this is the woman worth major surgery and abandoning your business. Naomi felt every insecurity flare at once. This was Jared's ex-fiancée, the woman he'd almost married 5 years ago, the relationship that had ended with accusations of emotional unavailability. And she looked like she belonged in Jared's world in ways Naomi never would. You need to leave, Jared said, his hand finding Naomi's across the room as if anchoring himself. I'm trying to save you from making a catastrophic mistake. Amanda's voice softened with what might have been genuine concern. You're throwing away your kidney for someone you've known for what? A month? This isn't like you, Jared. This is impulsive and reckless. This is the first real thing I've done in my entire life. Jared's voice was steel. You called me emotionally unavailable. You were right. I was protecting myself from ever feeling anything that couldn't be controlled or measured. And then I met Naomi. He moved to stand beside Naomi, his arm wrapping around her waist with possessive tenderness. She doesn't want to change me or control me or use me for access to my money. She sees me, the real me, including the parts I spent 42 years hiding. And I'm not giving that up. Not for you, not for anyone. Amanda stared at them for a long moment, something like regret flickering across her polished features. You never looked at me like that, like I was your entire world. I know, and I'm sorry for that. You deserved better." Jared's voice gentled slightly. "But that chapter is closed, and I'm not looking back." After Amanda left, Naomi turned in Jared's arms. "She's right about one thing. This is reckless and impulsive, and the best decision I've ever made." He kissed her forehead. "You're the best decision I've ever made." Around midnight, exhaustion finally defeated Naomi's determination to stay awake. "I should go to bed." "Want me to stay again?" The question was asked carefully, giving her space to say no without judgment, but Naomi found she couldn't imagine sending him away. "Yes, please." In her bedroom, they went through what was becoming a routine, Naomi changing into sleep clothes while Jared waited in the living room, then settling into bed together with a comfortable intimacy that should feel strange but somehow didn't. But tonight, as Jared pulled her against his chest, Naomi became aware of other things. The solid warmth of his body against hers, the way her curves fit against his angles, the gentle rhythm of his breathing that was just slightly faster than sleep would warrant. "Jared," she whispered into the darkness. "Yes? Are you asleep?" "No. Me neither." She felt him smile against her hair. "I gathered that, given that you're talking." Naomi shifted to face him, their bodies aligned along every point of contact. Even in the darkness, she could feel his gaze on her, intense and focused. "I've been thinking about what you said, about waiting until we're both thinking clearly. Naomi, and you're right. The first time shouldn't be driven by fear or desperation." She moved closer, eliminating what little space remained between them. "But I am thinking clearly. More clearly than I have in years, actually. And I want you. Not because I'm scared, though I am. Not because you're giving me your kidney, though I'm grateful. Because you make me feel seen and safe and alive in ways I'd forgotten were possible." Jared's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. "I want you, too. So much it physically hurts. But I need you to be sure. Because once we cross this line, once I have you like that, I'm not going to be able to pretend this is anything casual or temporary. I don't want casual or temporary. I want you, all of you, tonight." She watched the internal battle play across his features, concern for her health, desire to protect her, warring with his own overwhelming need. Finally, he leaned in, kissing her with a tenderness that made her throat tight. "If at any point you're too tired, if you feel dizzy or unwell, you tell me immediately," he said against her lips. "Promise me." "I promise. And we go slow. I'm not rushing this." "Okay, slow." Jared kissed her again, deeper this time, his hand sliding into her hair. Naomi responded with matching hunger, her fingers working at the buttons of his shirt until he helped her remove it completely. His chest was lean and strong. She ran her hands over his skin, feeling muscle shift beneath her palms. "You're beautiful," she whispered. "You're extraordinary." He kissed down her neck, gentle and reverent, hands sliding under her sleep shirt. "Tell me if anything doesn't feel good." "Everything feels good." He helped her out of her shirt, and for a moment, insecurity flared. Her body wasn't what it once was. The dialysis port at her collarbone, the weight she'd lost. But the way Jared looked at her, with desire and tenderness and something deeper, made the insecurity fade. "Perfect," he murmured, kissing the scar where her port had been placed. "Every part of you is perfect." They took their time exploring each other, learning what made the other gasp or shudder, building intimacy through touch and whispered confessions. When Jared finally moved over her, settling between her thighs with exquisite care, Naomi felt overwhelmed by the intimacy of it, not just the physical connection, but the emotional vulnerability of letting him see her completely. "I love you," he whispered as he entered her slowly, giving her body time to adjust. "I know it's too soon to say that, but it's true. I love you, Naomi Tipton." Tears leaked from her eyes, emotion overwhelming her. "I love you too." The confession seemed to break whatever restraint they'd both been maintaining. Jared's movements became less careful, more desperate, and Naomi met him with equal urgency. They moved together with a synchronicity that felt impossible for people who just met, as if their bodies had been designed specifically for each other. When pleasure finally crested, they held each other through it, Naomi's name a prayer on Jared's lips, his name a cry of joy and release from hers. In the aftermath, they lay tangled together, hearts racing in unison, neither willing to break the connection. "That was," Naomi started, unable to find adequate words. "Perfect, overwhelming, not nearly enough." Jared kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips with infinite tenderness. "How are you feeling? Dizzy? Tired? Tired in a good way. The best way." She curled against his chest, content in a way she'd never experienced. "Stay. Oh, please. Always." They fell asleep like that, bodies intertwined, hearts aligned, having crossed a threshold neither could uncross. And as Naomi drifted off, she thought that maybe, just maybe, this terrifying, impossible, too-fast connection might actually be the thing that saved her life in ways that went far beyond kidney function. Chapter 4. The next 6 weeks passed in a blur of dialysis sessions, donor testing, and deepening connection. Jared was deemed an excellent match. Tissue compatibility at 98%, blood type identical, all health screenings perfect. Surgery was scheduled for 5 weeks out. Time enough for final preparations, but fast enough to address Naomi's declining function. Through it all, they built something real. Jared moved into Naomi's apartment. His penthouse felt too empty compared to the warmth of her space. They established routines. He worked from her couch while she handled reduced caseloads from home. They cooked together in her tiny kitchen. They fell asleep tangled in each other's arms every night. The foundation took shape. Jared hired staff, experienced social workers who could handle Naomi's 37 cases and more. He negotiated with hospitals across the city for pilot programs. He poured resources and attention into building something sustainable, something that would outlast any individual advocate. And through it all, they loved each other with an intensity that both terrified and thrilled them. Monday's first dialysis session arrived with harsh reality. Naomi woke feeling dread in her stomach, knowing that in hours she'd be connected to a machine that would filter her blood because her kidneys couldn't. Jared seemed to sense her mood, being extra gentle as they prepared. He made breakfast, helped her gather supplies, didn't push when Naomi became withdrawn and quiet. The dialysis center was a floor below the main hospital, a specially designed space with comfortable recliners and medical equipment that tried to look less intimidating than it was. Naomi checked in with shaking hands, Jared a steady presence beside her. "First time?" the intake nurse asked kindly. "Yes." "You'll do fine. First session is always the hardest because it's new." Naomi was led to a recliner, Jared settling into the visitor's chair beside her with clear intention of staying for the entire 4-hour session. "You don't have to stay," Naomi said as the nurse began prepping her dialysis port. "This is going to be boring. I'm staying. Jared, I'm staying," he repeated more firmly. "I told you I wouldn't leave, and I meant it. That includes the boring, uncomfortable, scary parts." Watching the needle enter her port, seeing her blood begin flowing through tubes into the machine, Naomi felt her composure cracking. This was real. She was really sick enough to need this. Jared seemed to sense her spiraling thoughts. He took her free hand, intertwining their fingers, and started talking about anything and everything. His mother's upcoming visit, a ridiculous real estate deal Richard was negotiating, plans for the foundation. His voice became an anchor, pulling her back from panic. 2 hours into the session, Naomi began feeling strange, lightheaded and nauseous, her heart racing. The nurse noticed immediately, checking her blood pressure with concern. "Your BP dropped. That's normal for first sessions, but we'll slow the flow rate." She adjusted settings on the machine, then looked at Jared. "Keep her talking. Distraction helps." "Tell me about your first social work case," Jared said, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. "The one that made you know this was your calling." Naomi focused on his voice, on the grounding touch of his hand, and found words even through the discomfort. She told him about Maria Garcia, a single mother fighting to keep custody of her daughter while navigating cancer treatment. How Naomi had been a first-year social worker, terrified and inexperienced, but determined to help. "She sent me a card last year," Naomi said. "Her daughter's in college now, pre-med. Wants to help people like her mother was helped. Because of you." The rest of the dialysis session passed in a blur of discomfort and quiet conversation. Jared never left, just stayed present while her blood was cleaned by a machine. When it finally ended, Naomi felt wrung out and dizzy. every movement requiring concentration. Naomi froze when she saw him in the dialysis center waiting room. Marcus looked exactly the same. Polished suit, confident smile, still handsome in that practiced way. "Naomi, I heard through mutual friends that you were sick. I wanted to check on you." Jared felt Naomi's hand tighten around his, her entire body tensing. He remembered Shanice's story. This was the man who'd abandoned her when her mother was dying. "I'm fine," Naomi said, voice carefully neutral. "I can see that." Marcus's gaze swept over the dialysis equipment, the IV in her arm, the visible signs of illness. Something uncomfortable crossed his features, perhaps guilt. "I'm glad you have support this time." The implication hung in the air, unlike when her mother was dying and he'd walked away. "I have more than support," Naomi said quietly. "I have partnership, someone who doesn't run when things get difficult." Jared pulled her closer, making his presence unmistakable. Marcus got the message, offered an awkward goodbye, and left. "He wasn't worth you," Jared said. "I know that now. But for a long time I believed his version, that I was too much, too needy, too focused on everyone else's problems." She looked at him. "You make me feel like those parts of me aren't flaws, like caring deeply is strength, not weakness." Because it is, and he was a coward who couldn't handle a real woman with real depth. Jared helped her to the car with gentle efficiency, buckling her seatbelt when her hands shook. The drive back to her apartment was quiet, Naomi dozing against the window. "Home," Jared said softly as he parked. "Not home yet. Still have to climb stairs. I'm carrying you." Too tired to argue, Naomi let her head rest against his shoulder as he carried her up 4 flights without seeming winded. Inside her apartment, he set her carefully on the couch, arranging pillows for maximum comfort. Over the following weeks, a rhythm developed. 3 times weekly, Jared drove Naomi to dialysis and stayed for every session. Between appointments, they planned the foundation, the Tipton-Goldberg Foundation for Family Advocacy. Jared secured office space, hired staff, negotiated with hospital systems. Naomi provided expertise on family advocacy models, training protocols, support structures. "I got the final compatibility results," Jared said one evening, 3 weeks before scheduled surgery. They were curled together on her couch, his laptop balanced on his knees, showing foundation incorporation documents. Dr. Merrick called. "Everything looks perfect." She used the phrase, "ideal donor match." Naomi's heart stuttered. "Perfect how?" "Every marker aligned. Tissue typing, antibody screening, organ size compatibility." She said in 20 years of transplant coordination, she's rarely seen such a perfect match. Jared set down the laptop, taking both her hands. "Naomi, this is really going to work." The possibility of it, of Jared's kidney saving her life, of not dying the way her mother had, felt too enormous to process. What if something goes wrong? What if complications? Then we deal with it if it happens. But right now the signs are as good as they can possibly be. Let yourself hope. Hope is dangerous. So is living without it. He pulled her closer, wrapping his arms around her. "We're going to get through this. Together." The weeks before surgery felt both endless and too short. Naomi reduced her work further, letting the newly hired social workers handle most active cases. It felt strange, unnatural, like cutting off a limb. But watching families receive quality care from properly supported advocates made the transition easier. "The Morrison family sent this," Shanice said one afternoon, visiting Naomi's apartment with a care package. She handed over a card signed by Tyler and his parents. "They wanted you to know they're thinking about you." Naomi opened the card, reading Tyler's message. "Miss Tipton, you taught me that asking for help isn't weakness. Now it's your turn to accept help. We're all rooting for you." Tears blurred her vision. "I'm not good at this." "At what?" Shanice settled beside her on the couch. "At being the one who needs saving. I'm supposed to be the one who saves people." "Everyone needs saving sometimes, even social workers who spend their lives saving everyone else." Shanice squeezed her hand. "And you found someone stubborn enough to fight for you the way you fight, for your families." "I'm scared, Shanice. What if the surgery doesn't work? What if I lose him because of this? What if it does work, and you gain a lifetime with someone who sees you, really sees you?" Shanice's voice gentled. "You deserve this, Naomi. You deserve someone who puts you first. Surgery day arrived with appropriate solemnity. Naomi and Jared were prepped in adjacent bays, able to see each other until the last possible moment. Shanice was there, and surprisingly, Jared's mother, Roxanne, who'd flown in from Phoenix and looked at Naomi with something like wonder. "Thank you," Naomi told Jared as they were about to be wheeled to separate operating rooms. "For what?" "For answering that phone call, for staying, for loving me when I'd forgotten how to let someone. Thank you for teaching me what actually matters." He leaned over to kiss her, mindless of the nurses and doctors surrounding them. "See you on the other side." "See you on the other side." The surgery took 8 hours. When Naomi woke, groggy and in pain, the first thing she saw was Jared in the bed beside her, pale and exhausted, but smiling. "It worked," he said, his voice rough. "Your body accepted my kidney. You're going to be okay." Naomi felt tears streaming down her face. "We're going to be okay." "Yeah, we are." Recovery was challenging. Both spent days in the hospital, then weeks at home healing. Jared's recovery was faster. Donor surgeries were less invasive than recipient procedures. He used his mobility to care for Naomi, helping her manage pain medications, assisting with movement, being present through every difficult moment. "I feel useless," Naomi admitted one afternoon, 2 weeks post-surgery. She was still largely bedridden, dependent on Jared for basic tasks. "You gave me your kidney, and now you're waiting on me hand and foot." "You're not useless. You're healing." Jared settled beside her on the bed, careful not to jostle her incision sites. "And I'm not waiting on you. I'm taking care of someone I love while she recovers from major surgery." "I'm not used to this." "I know, but you're learning. We both are." He took her hand gently. "You're learning to accept care. I'm learning that some things matter more than business deals and profit margins." As weeks passed, Naomi's strength returned. 6 weeks post-surgery, Dr. Merrick pronounced both of them recovered enough to resume normal activities with some restrictions. Naomi's new kidney was functioning beautifully. Creatinine levels normal, no signs of rejection, energy returning day by day. "It's like waking up," Naomi told Jared one morning, marveling at how rested she felt after a full night's sleep. "I'd forgotten what it felt like to not be exhausted all the time." That's what healthy kidneys do. Jared was making breakfast, another routine they'd established. Your body is finally getting what it needs. The foundation officially launched 3 months post-surgery. The Tipton Goldbergs Foundation for Family Advocacy opened offices in downtown Manhattan with a staff of 12 social workers, 3 administrative coordinators, and partnerships with 5 hospital systems. Naomi returned to work part-time, consulting on cases and training new advocates. But her days of carrying 37 families alone were over. Now, she built systems that ensured no single social worker would burn out the way she had. The woman who walked into the foundation offices looked familiar in a way that made Naomi's heart stutter. "Naomi Tipton?" "Yes." Naomi looked up from her desk, then went completely still. The face was older, the body heavier, but those eyes were unmistakable. "Keisha, you remember me?" The woman's voice cracked slightly. "I wasn't sure you would. It's been 23 years. Naomi stood on shaking legs. Keisha had been her foster sister for 18 months when Naomi was 12. They'd shared a bedroom, shared clothes, shared dreams of being adopted together. Then, Keisha had aged out of the system and disappeared, and Naomi had never found her again. "I never stopped looking for you," Naomi whispered. "I know. I saw your name in an article about the foundation, saw your photo and knew it was you." Keisha smiled through tears. "You became exactly who you said you'd be, helping families, making sure kids don't fall through the cracks like we did." They fell into each other's arms, 23 years of separation collapsing in an instant. Jared watched from his office doorway, witnessing Naomi's walls crumble through finding a piece of her lost history. "There's someone I want you to meet," Naomi said when they finally pulled apart. She called Jared over. "This is Jared, my fiancé." Keisha's eyebrows rose. "Fiancé? The Naomi I knew couldn't even let people help her with homework." "She's learning," Jared said with gentle humor. Keisha joined the foundation board 3 months later, bringing her expertise in child welfare advocacy. The girl who'd aged out of the system at 18 had spent 20 years working her way through social services, building the same kind of change from the inside that Naomi was building from the outside. 6 months after surgery, Naomi stood on a small stage in a hotel ballroom, looking out at 200 faces, families the foundation had helped, social workers they'd hired, donors who believed in the mission. Jared stood beside her, whole and healthy, his arm around her waist. The Tipton Goldberg Foundation operates in 12 cities now, she told the crowd. We've reduced average social worker caseloads from 43 families to 18. We've helped over 400 families navigate medical crises. We've created a model that actually works. Applause filled the room, but Naomi barely heard it. She was too focused on Jared's face, on the pride and love shining in his eyes. When the speeches ended and the formal program concluded, Jared took the microphone one more time. I have one more announcement, he said, his voice steady, but his hand trembling as he reached for Naomi's. Actually, it's more of a question. Naomi's heart stopped as Jared dropped to one knee in front of 200 people. Naomi Tipton, 6 months ago you saved my life by listing me as your emergency contact. You taught me what actually matters. You showed me that real success is measured in lives touched, not dollars earned. You made me believe in love when I'd given up on the possibility. His voice broke slightly. Will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of our lives proving that you were worth saving? Through tears, Naomi nodded. Yes. Yes. 1,000 times yes. The applause was deafening as Jared stood and kissed her, but for them, only each other existed. Two people who'd found each other through crisis, who'd built something beautiful through vulnerability, who'd learned that sometimes the greatest love stories begin with a midnight phone call and a stranger willing to stay. Later, alone in their apartment, the one they now shared, they lay tangled together in comfortable silence. I love you, Naomi whispered into the darkness. I love you too. Always. And for the first time in 20 years, Naomi believed that always was actually possible, that she'd found someone who wouldn't leave, wouldn't disappoint, wouldn't fail her, someone who'd answered a phone call at 3:14 in the morning and changed both their lives forever. 1 year after surgery, Naomi and Jared stood in a botanical garden surrounded by the families they'd helped. Deshaun walked Naomi down the aisle. You were my family first, he said. Roxanne officiated, having gotten licensed online for the occasion. Shanice served as maid of honor, still protective, but now approving. Their vows were about saving each other. I promise to let you save me as often as I save you, Naomi said, her voice steady despite tears. I promise to remind you that you're worth fighting for, Jared replied, his thumb brushing away the tear that escaped down her cheek. The foundation continued to grow. 24 cities within 2 years, hundreds of social workers supported, thousands of families helped. Tyler Morrison graduated college and joined the team as a peer counselor specializing in adolescent mental health. The foster family's daughter recovered fully and became a youth advocate. Every success story reinforced what Naomi and Jared had learned, that sustainable systems matter more than individual martyrdom. But the greatest success was their own transformation. Jared learned that wealth meant nothing without purpose, that vulnerability was strength, that love meant fighting for someone even when they fought you. Naomi learned that accepting help wasn't weakness, that being cared for didn't diminish her worth, that letting someone in was the bravest thing she'd ever done. 2 years after that emergency phone call, they stood in their new brownstone in Brooklyn. The house Jared had bought as a surprise, the home they'd made together. Photos lined the walls, their wedding, foundation events, the families they'd helped, the life they'd built. Do you ever think about that night? Naomi asked, curled against Jared's side on their couch. The supply closet, the emergency call, all of it? Every day. Jared's arms tightened around her. Best panic attack I ever had. Naomi laughed, the sound full of joy and contentment. Best emergency contact decision I ever made. Even though I was a complete stranger. Especially because you were a stranger. You didn't know me as the social worker who saves everyone. You just knew me as someone who helped you breathe. She shifted to look at him. You saw me, Jared. Really saw me. That's why I wrote your name. And I'm so grateful you did. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips with infinite tenderness. You gave me a reason to be better. a purpose beyond accumulation, a life worth living. You gave me permission to be human, to need help, to accept love. Naomi's voice softened. You taught me that I deserved to be saved, too. 3 years after the transplant, at a foundation gala celebrating their expansion to 30 cities, Dr. Tanner approached them with a smile. I wanted you both to know, she said, that your case is taught in our transplant program now. The perfect example of how living donation transforms lives, not just medically, but emotionally, spiritually. You two are proof that sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is letting them help you. After she left, Naomi turned to Jared with tears in her eyes. Can you believe it? We're a teaching case. We're a love story, Jared corrected, the kind that reminds people that the best things in life can't be planned or controlled, that sometimes you have to surrender to something bigger than yourself. Like falling for a stranger who found you having a panic attack? Like answering a phone call at 3:14 in the morning for someone you didn't remember. They danced together in the ballroom, bodies moving in perfect sync, two people who'd learned that love wasn't about completion, it was about transformation, about becoming better versions of themselves through the courage to be vulnerable with the right person. Sometimes, the person who saves your life is the one who needs saving most. Sometimes the greatest wealth comes not from what you accumulate, but from what you're willing to give away. And sometimes love isn't about finding someone to complete you, but about finding someone who inspires you to become the most complete version of yourself. Jared and Naomi's foundation now operates in 38 cities across the country, ensuring families in medical crisis have advocates who can fight for them without sacrificing their own well-being. Deshawn runs the teen counseling program. Tyler Morrison directs the mental health advocacy division. The foster family started a support group for families navigating eating disorders. Every family they'd helped became part of a growing network of people who understood that accepting help was strength, not weakness. But their greatest legacy wasn't the foundation or the families they'd helped. It was the love they'd built through vulnerability, the partnership they had created through mutual support, the life they had made by learning that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let someone see you at your worst and trust they'll stay. Their story reminds us that healing happens when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable with the right person, when we choose partnership over pride, when we decide that loving someone means fighting for them, even when they're fighting themselves. Have you ever experienced a moment when helping someone else led to unexpected healing in your own life? Have you had to learn the difficult balance between caring for others and caring for yourself? Share your stories in the comments below. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful love stories about finding hope in the most unexpected places. Let me know where you're watching from. And remember, sometimes the greatest love stories are about two people who choose to heal together, one day at a time. Thank you for joining Jared and Naomi on their journey from crisis to hope, from isolation to partnership, from surviving to truly living.